Hello YouTube. Can you guess what we're going to work on this week? What we have here is the original exhaust system that came out of the Jeep. And this is the crown kit for the muffler and the tailpipe. And they're not the same. The muffler is pretty much the same, but the tailpipe looks very different. You see how quickly this bend comes up? And this is quite a ways back. And see what this angle is like and what this angle is like. So it's different. But this pipe has been hit right here. It's been crushed. It's almost crushed in half. So I'm wondering if this damage here caused this to be bent up and the pipe to be bent up. So what I want to do before too much time passes is to put this into the Jeep and see where it all lines up. We have a fixed point here that'll locate the catalytic converter and the muffler and the tailpipe in the correct position. This is the hanger bracket that goes on the Jeep itself. This I cannot find. They make a reproduction that's different from this. I don't want to put the reproduction in that's different from this, so we're going to save this. This bracket here is located in the joint between the muffler and the catalytic converter. So to locate the muffler and the catalytic converter nicely. We have to pay special attention to the clamp that's holding the catalytic converter and the muffler together. There's actually a spacer here between the bracket and the clamp. So we want to recover those spacers. And the clamp itself is different from the reproduction in that the reproduction doesn't have as much space between the pipe and the top of the clamp. We have a good 1/2 inch here in this clamp that's not in this clamp. This clamp fits right down on the pipe. I believe the next step is to try to put it in the Jeep. I'll clean this up a little bit and take all the penetrating oil off so we don't get it on the frame. First thing we'll do is we'll bolt up the hanger bracket to the bracket that's on the frame. And yes, I did put anti-seize on these. It's not permanent, I understand, but now the bolts are already anti-seized and I won't have to do it later. And these bolts have been powder coated. Finger tight is good enough for this. Now we'll put down a little protection for our frame for possible contact points. We don't want any possible contact points, so we'll take the precaution of protecting things. So far so good. I want some pictures of this area because there's supposed to be a bracket here that this tailpipe hangs from. This is not original. It would have gone like that and it works, but I want to make the bracket or get a bracket. Let's see if we can get it back out without doing any damage. We got it in without doing any damage. Maybe we can get it out. All right, let's see if we can get this off. Oh, look at that. This thing is loud, but I think it's the best tool for the job. We have the outlet of the catalytic converter cleaned up. Let's see if the new muffler will slide onto it. All the way to the stop. Okay, Now the next thing we need to do is clean that up, clean this up, and repair this area here. Looks like we got a little bit of sandblasting to do, so we're going to go off to the sandblaster. What we have to do now is decide how we're going to refinish this stuff. This doesn't get enough heat, so I think we can powder coat it. I think that doesn't get enough heat, so we can powder coat it. And the same thing with that. These clamps and this shield, we're going to have to use high temp paint on. And we certainly have some repair work to do here. This piece right here is going to be an interesting piece to make, because it has this bead through it, and we're going to have to cut this piece out like that and then put the bead in there, and then there's a couple little holes there. On this end, what looks like hair, but it's weld. Somebody tried to weld that together and made a mess out of it. So we're going to probably have to cut this off right here and make this part new. I think we'll start with the hardest piece, which is this. And I think the first thing we'll do is we'll cut this thing off because it's not doing us any good. And then we'll start making this patch right here. Right through the weld. I have this piece of scrap metal, and I think we can make that work. Let's lay that out. Go from there to there. I think we can make that work. Let's cut this piece out. We got a couple little welds here where I obviously was checking to see if I had the settings correctly on the welder. And we'll just grind them off. We have a piece of 18 gauge metal that'll cover all the damaged areas. So what I want to do is now form this to fit that patch before I cut this out. So the first thing I want to do is put this bend in it, because I think if I put this bead in there and then try to do the bend, it's going to be hard. But if I put the bend in and then put the bead in, I think it'll be all right. We have a gradual bend right there. So if we put this right on there like that, that bend occurs right off this peak here. I think it needs to go just a little more. Okay, that's the center of the bead right there, and that's the center of the bead right there. Let's see if we can run this through. All right, that's just making contact, and I'm wondering what's going to happen at the bend. It looks like it's going to be all right. Let's go a turn. That's one full turn. Then we'll go another full turn. Then we'll go another full turn. That's pretty good. Let's go check and see where we're at. I think what we need to do is erase the original lines and draw lines around our patch and then cut it out. That's what we're going to cut out. That should get us into healthy metal, except for maybe right here. And it's all pretty punky. But I think we'll be all right. This is the idea anyway. We have our patch all clamped up and there's two errors. This over here is an overlap. See the black line there? I need to cut it back to the black line so that this piece can come up. And I need to do a little bit more on the bead because my bead is lower than their bead. So let's take it back to the bead roller. We'll roll this a little bit more and we'll trim this off here and then the patch should fit. Okay, now the patch goes in. Let's see if we can put a deeper bead in. Well, I got a little squiggle in my bead now. Well, let's go see if that matches up. I'm happy with the fitment of that patch. I think now we're going to try to weld it in. What I've been doing here is practicing on this piece that we cut out of the heat shield, the punky piece, to see if I can get a welding setting that I won't burn through all the time, and it's kind of 50-50. So let's see what happens here. Well, let's see if it'll hold together. Okay, a little more welding to do. This is what we have now. Some of this is paper thin. I did burn through. I'm going to have to grind and see if I can patch it up. Well, let's do a little grinding. This is what we had. That's what we got now. we'll run it through the sandblaster. I'll probably punch some holes in it by running it through the sandblaster again, but that'll make the metal look the same, and we will be ready to paint. And that's what it looks like after running it through the sandblaster. Not perfect, but it certainly will do the job. With the heat shield repaired, we have to move on to the strap that we cut off. Now the strap has holes in it that are the same distance apart as the bolts on a muffler clamp. So what I'm going to do is make the clamp long enough to go around and do the muffler clamp and come back up. Whereas this only had one, I think I want it to come down, over, and up. If I have to, I can just cut this piece off, but I'd like to weld it there so it's got support on both sides. This strap is 7/8 of an inch wide. So we can make one out of this. So we have our strap. We know approximately how long it's got to be. So I think it came down to about here. So we'll make it that long. That is 1.5 inches. So we'll put our first bend at 1.5 inches. There's the other bend. Drill some pilot holes. The clamp fits our bracket nicely. So now all we got to do is weld it in place. I have two different tailpipes here. One is from Summit Racing, and it's a walker. And if I slide it into the end of the muffler, there are all kinds of slack. It doesn't fit at all. I called them up. They didn't want it returned. I can't use it. This is the pipe that came with the crown kit, the muffler and the tailpipe. And it fits better, but it is still loose too. But I might be able to print that down with a muffler clamp. If not, I'll have to heat it a little bit. I think the next thing to do is to test it in the vehicle. With the exhaust system mocked into place, we can see at the back here we're missing something. There's got to be a hanger there. In fact, there is. This is the hanger that was there, and it puts the tailpipe much too close to the shackle and too far down. We can see from the tailpipe that there's a flattened area here, and they did that so that the tailpipe would be close to the frame. There is, in fact, a factory hanger that goes here, and thanks to Sam Fletter, I have one. He sent it to me in the mail for free, and this is what it looks like. It goes right here and hangs like that. So we have to clean this up and make it presentable. I have the hanger that goes in on top of the pipe. We'll weld it on top of the pipe and into the hanger. It actually has a suspender in it. This is original. It's got the original bolts in it. I'm going to clean the bolts up. I'm going to use the original bushing. Walker does make a reproduction, and it's close, but it's not the same. The heads of the bolts are indented, and the hole in the Walker is much larger than the hole in the original. So let's clean this up. Let's take it apart. Once again, we have the entire exhaust system laid out, but more importantly, we have all the pieces. And what we have to decide to do now is how we're going to refinish these pieces. This will powder coat black. That will powder coat black. These will paint because they're in direct contact with the exhaust system. These we're going to powder coat. These will powder coat. These will powder coat. And that'll powder coat. Paint, paint, paint. Paint, paint, powder coat, powder coat, powder coat, leave it alone. These are the nuts and bolts that we're going to powder coat clear, and these pieces are all going to get powder coated semi-gloss black. We'll start with the nuts and the bolts. Now that the bolts and nuts are done, we'll do the black pieces. It's time to start painting all the hardware that's in contact with the exhaust, and I'm going to use the VHT high temp flame proof. It's 1300 to 2000 degrees. It should be fine. What happened? It didn't look like that before. Yeah, I took it outside, I sandblasted it, it was raining. So far I've been sandblasting twice in the snow and twice in the rain. And now I'm going to paint it. And I'm going to turn the exhaust fan on. This VHT paint has to be cured. And there's two ways to cure it. Most people cure it on the car and they probably don't follow the directions, but there are directions. You run it at idle for 20 minutes and you let it sit and cool, and then you run it for 20 minutes again. But we're not going to do that. We're going to do this in the oven. And in the oven, and I've had real good results with this, they give you heat cycles. Heat it for so long at this temperature, and then let it cool, and then heat it again. And that's worked real well. I've had headers painted like this and cured in the oven that have lasted years. So we're going to do this in the oven. They want us to bake the first cycle at 250 degrees for 30 minutes and let it cool for 30 minutes. That completes the 250, the 30-minute wait, and 500 degrees, and now we gotta wait another 30 minutes for it to cool, and we go to 600. That's the final heat cycle at 600 degrees, and now we just gotta let it cool. It's hot. We gotta let it cool, and we can start assembling. We once again had the entire exhaust system on the workbench, but this time we have every clamp, all the pipes, the hangers, the brackets, the heat shields have all been sandblasted, painted, powder coated, ready to go on the vehicle. I'm going to put the brackets in tight, but the muffler clamps I'm going to leave alone because we may want to change the angle of the pipes based on where the engine ends up. So we'll leave those loose, but these will tighten right up. The paint on this front pipe and catalytic converter is not cured, so it's still tender. So we have to be careful with it. There we go. No damage yet, I don't think. This could be a little tricky. I'm going to put the spacers on. Now we have to get a nut started. I forgot to put the heat shield on. Maybe I can sneak it in here without dropping the whole thing down. And now, the icing on the cake, the gift from Sam. according to the pictures that Sam sent, this is not exactly correct. This bracket here should come out, down, and back, and the clamp should be here. The bracket that I have comes out, down, and out, and the clamp is in front of the hanger. It's close enough for government work. If I find the right bracket, I'll turn it around. All the brackets are tight. The clamps are finger tight. I don't want to tighten them anymore because I don't know where the motor's going to go, and that could change everything. And there are some tight clearances. For example, between the shock and the muffler there, that's pretty tight. And then again, right here with the shackle. So we're as far as we can go with this exhaust system. Let's move on to something else. Here I am reading out of the manual again, but it's curious. I did watch some YouTube videos, and every one of them, they took an air gun and zipped the bolts out, and there's a caution here. So let me read the steps. Step 1, remove transmission as outlined in Chapter 2B. Well, we don't have to do that. Remove the starter motor. We don't have to do that. Remove the throwout bearing. We don't have to do that. Remove the clutch housing. We don't have to do that. Mark position of the clutch cover on the flywheel for assembly alignment reference. We do have to do that. So I'm going to mark this right here. I didn't get a good hit on that. There we go. And I'll put another one right here. 6. Loosen the clutch cover attaching bolts 1 or 2 turns at a time and in rotation to relieve spring tension on cover. Very interesting. Caution. The clutch cover bolts must be loosened evenly and in rotation to avoid cover distortion. The cover is a steel stamping and would be warped if improperly removed, resulting in clutch chatter when installed. 2 turns. Maybe 1 turn. You know, that doesn't look bad to me. Got a heat spot here, but it's no checking. You got a heat spot here. I'm going to ask a buddy of mine what he thinks. Let's try a little brake clean in 3M Scotch-Brite. This is the flywheel side of the pressure plate, and there's hardly any wear. I mean, if you compare it to a new one, the rivets are the same depth as what's in here. I suspect that this is a fairly new clutch, and that flywheel has been serviced. I'm going to put it back, and I'm going to return the new one and get some money back. We're back to reading the manual, and this is clutch installation, and number 1 is check and correct the clutch cover release lever height if necessary. We don't have to do that because we're putting the same one back in. Install the pilot bushing, lubricate, and we're not going to do that. Install the clutch alignment tool. We can't do that until we put the pressure plate in. Caution. Be sure the correct side of the driven plate faces the flywheel. Reference to the reference marks placed on the driven plate during clutch removal. Position the clutch cover on the flywheel and over the drive plate and alignment tool. Align cover and flywheel according to reference marks made during clutch removal, and install cover attaching bolts finger tight only. So that's what we have to line up. And we'll set this up here. Take a bolt. it started. Okay, 2 bolts started and it'll hold itself. All right, we have all the bolts evenly tight at finger tightness. Number 5, tighten cover attaching bolts alternately and evenly to 40 foot-pounds torque. Be sure to maintain cover-to-cover alignment while tightening the bolts. Caution, the cover attaching bolts must be tightened alternately and evenly to avoid distorting the cover. That means what they want us to do is to tighten this bolt to 40 foot-pounds and then go over to this bolt and tighten that one to 40 foot-pounds, and I don't know how that's even. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten these alternately, just like what they say, and then I'm going to go to 20 foot-pounds first and then 40. So here we go to 20 foot-pounds. Well, guys, if there's one thing I dislike more than anything else, is that's redoing something I've already redone once. But I did have to put the oil pan on the 454 and the gasser 4 times before I got no leaks. This thing is leaking again. This is partially my fault. I changed all the bolts out for the Torx head bolts that are correct for the differential. It wasn't leaking until then, but now it is. So now we're going to change it again. This surface is clean and flat. Here we go again. Okay, that's well coated, and we'll dry the surface. Get all the oil off. Stick a rag in there for a second. Get our gasket and put it in place. Okay, we got a nice film of goo. Take our rag out and put the cover on. With all the bolts finger tight, we can wipe off this anti-seize that I got all over the place, and we'll come back in an hour and torque it up. They want 20 foot-pounds. The sealant doesn't want fluid in contact with it for 24 hours, and that'll be Wednesday. And I publish on Tuesday, so we're not going to get the oil in the rear end. We can check up on that later. I think we accomplished what we set out to do. We got the exhaust system in. We pulled the clutch off, and it looks like that's in good shape. And we may have fixed the differential. I certainly don't want to have to take it apart again. So if you enjoyed this video, there will be more.